Your friends who are trying to invest in real estate right now and buy single family homes are making a huge mistake. Like stupid level, asinine, worst thing you could ever do in your life mistake by trying to buy property right now as part of their investment strategy to build wealth. Right now is not the time to buy a home. And if you own a home, now's the time to get out of it. Let me explain what you should do. I'm going to walk you through what you should do if you had money to invest in real estate right now. Sean Rocky Geach, Airbnb Automated, and by the end of this video, you'll be ready to make a couple $1 million a year just like me in real estate. Let's jump in. Welcome back, Airbnb family. So let's just jump right in, skip the whole like, subscribe thing. I want to talk to you about this because it's freaking serious. It's the end of 2020, post-coronavirus. The stock market is arguably way overvalued. Our economy is unstable. We are probably in one of the most uncertain times ever in my history, and probably in multiple generations. We're probably in the state of greatest uncertainty. And so that is a big factor here in this argument. So if you have a house that has a tenant with a lease that is 6 months or longer, like it doesn't end in 6 months or longer, sell your house right now. If you're in a major city, sell it. If you have a house that you don't have a tenant in, you're gonna put it on Airbnb for a few months, build up like rental income but higher cash flow as an Airbnb, and then sell it for more. But you're gonna get out of your homes, and this is why. There is a much higher likelihood that home prices are going to go down on average than up on average. And there's better ways to get return on investment than to do debt pay down anyway. So if you're holding onto homes with the alpha in your investment strategy to be capital, like appreciation from like property values going up and stuff like that, now is probably the worst time for that. This is one of those economies where when everything goes belly under, you could lose 30% of your home's value. And I actually did an interview with a guy out of Denver who, this happened when he was a brand new real estate investor. He bought like a fourplex and the thing just sunk. And he lost like $125,000 in equity on the deal. And he still had to pay his mortgage and his cost of debt. And that's another thing you need to factor in here too. A lot of these people who are teaching you how to invest in real estate are telling you to get big fat loans. You put 3 to 5% down on a property and then you get a mortgage. And mortgage rates are super low, great, awesome, but still there's a cost of debt and you have to factor that in. So if you pay a 4.5 or 5.5% mortgage or worse, you know, if you end up being one of those people who has to pay that much, the cost of your mortgage is going to balloon. If you buy a $400,000 property, you could very well over 30 years spend $600,000 on that $400,000 mortgage if you mortgaged $400,000. So you lose $200,000 there. Now people will argue back and go, well, that's why we get tenants, man. That's why we get like landlord, somebody pays down the debt. So what you've got is inefficient debt pay down where somebody's gonna pay you rent and you're gonna pay your mortgage, and instead of that money going to profit, it's going to pay off your interest. And you're hoping to cash flow a couple $100s a month on your property. And that's super weak. That's super weak even if the risk of your home prices going down is not a factor here. But there's better ways to make money on that property anyway. So let's just talk about why you should Airbnb instead of getting a regular tenant, like I said earlier in this video. Airbnb home rentals, like 3-bedroom houses, 4-bedroom houses, I tend to profit $800 per bedroom on a property that I do something called rental arbitrage in. So if I rent a 3-bedroom house from someone, after cost of operations, I'm profiting roughly $2,400 a month above and beyond my cost of operations. That's rent, utilities, paying for my housekeepers, paying for my teams, okay? So now, if you run a smaller operation that has less fat in the middle, because I have managers and I've got all this other stuff, if you run a boutique Airbnb operation, not only will you keep that $2,400, but you'll keep a little extra because you don't have to pay as many people. And the fact that you are now paying off your mortgage is basically you collected rent plus $2,400 in profit, plus a little bit more. That's way more cash in your pocket. So now you're at a crossroad. You're making way more money on that house. You can then go sell it for more because it's cash flowing more. And you can say this is performing great on Airbnb. And you're more likely to find an eager buyer because people are looking to buy properties to Airbnb. There's actually a market for that. My best friend specializes in buying homes to do exactly that. But you can either sit on it and make that extra cash and take the extra profit, like the extra $3,000 that you're getting per month, ballpark, 2,500 to 3,000, you can take that extra money and you can pocket it over the course of the next year, hoping that you don't lose more money in devaluation of your property over the next couple of years than you made in that extra cash flow. Now, if you're a long game investor and you're stubborn as hell, then yeah, sit on the property for 10 years, just ride the property down and ride it back up later. Cool. But if you're young, like me or younger, I'm 34, and you want to build massive wealth, you don't want to waste time on a bad racehorse. You don't want to waste your time in a bad bet. So why are you going to lock up a down payment into a house to leverage a mortgage that you have to pay off? And there's a limit on how much debt you can get. You just can't get infinite number of mortgages. That's not something that you're allowed to do. So if you're going to lock up the little bit of money that you have to put into down payment for a mortgage to buy a house where the price dips and you're stuck in it and you have to wait for your equity to come back before you can reinvest in homes, then now is not the time to buy a property. There's so much better you can do with that money. And here's exactly what you should do. Take the cash that you have and start in rental arbitrage the same way that I got started. It's real estate adjacent, which means you're going to have inherent advantages in real estate when you get into real estate, but this is not technically real estate. And also, I'm writing a book on this right now. I just signed a deal with a publisher for a 2-book deal. And in the book that I'm writing as we speak, I'm mentioning how leases arguably are the most unregulated form of leverage you can find right now. You can get an infinite number of leases with a very small amount of cash flow. If you can prove that you have 4x the rent in your bank account, you can go to 100 properties and get approved at 100 properties and sign 100 leases when you have 4x of the rent in your bank account. So that means if you're signing $1,500 a month leases, you only need $6,000 a month in income to get 100 leases. You could keep going with that little money. That's how unregulated leases are. So if you want leverage and you want wild leverage that you can just max out and keep building with without somebody tethering you back, then you can do leases and rental arbitrage. I've got videos on how to do rental arbitrage here. So you buy some furniture, you furnish apartments, you put them on Airbnb, you profit $800 roughly per bedroom, and you can snowball that profit into picking up more leases. It cost me about $5,000 per 1-bedroom apartment, $4,500 per studio that I pick up. So every time that I profit $4,500, $5,000, I can reinvest and pick up another unit. What's great about this is I'm not married to the value of the property, because my income is solely what's on top after I pay rent. Yes, somebody else is paying down their debt or paying down their mortgage, but I don't have to worry about being married to the equity of the building. And even more so in the state of insecurity that landlords have right now, I'm getting better rent deals. I'm negotiating lower rent. I'm negotiating 2 months of rent for free, no security deposit, all these special things because they just want to have a tenant that they know is going to pay the rent, because people are so unsure that they can actually collect rents from tenants right now. That's a big factor. Now, if you're worried if this is legal or allowed, trust me, it is. I operate in 4 separate cities. I have over 100 properties, but let me further explain. Don't just take my word for it, right? So I got into this by accident, and I signed my first lease through my company in 2011 because I was evicted in 2009, and I started a small business, and I relocated some people to California, and we're setting up a newspaper subscription sales business in the suburbs of LA in 2011. And I couldn't find a place to stay that was not a hotel, which was super expensive, and I wanted to get an apartment because we're gonna be there a long while. They would not approve me because I had an eviction on my record, but the leasing agent's like, hey, just start an LLC, your cash flow's good, and we'll just approve your LLC for the lease. And voila, I had my first lease under an LLC. And this came back in 2014. In 2014, I started signing many LLC leases to relocate sales agents from different states, because that company, the newspaper subscription one, was actually growing and we were doing really well. I relocated someone from Detroit, relocated a sales guy that did door knocking. He's originally from Wisconsin, but he's kind of rogue, and I just was shipping people into Houston. Now, I had active 3 leases in one high rise, and when the time came for those people to move out, I didn't have anything to do with those properties, but I was still paying the rents on them. See, I was trying to do my own corporate housing shtick, but I didn't think about the fact that I signed a year-long lease and only had 2 months of tenant that I was providing as a trade for work. So as part of my relocation packages, I then got stuck with 10 months of a lease. And so I had to figure out something to do with it. That's when I begrudgingly, in all of my stubbornness, decided to try something new, and I put them on Airbnb. And I started making tons of money. Like, I was doubling my rent in profit. So in this high rise, I was paying $6,000 in rent because my personal apartment was like $2,400 a month at the time. And then between the other ones, $6,000 in rent roughly. And I was making $12,000 plus in income, and I was cleaning them myself. So I was profiting roughly $6,000 a month on these properties. And I was still too stubborn because my other business was doing great. But then it hit me when the Super Bowl happened in 2017 in Houston. I'm like, oh, this is going to be huge. And that's when I started snowballing these leases. And this is where I discovered how powerful it was. I was able to go from 3 apartments to 10 apartments inside of just a couple of months. And I put them all on Airbnb. I made like 15 grand Super Bowl weekend. And I was like, this is super awesome. And then I just kept going. I started this YouTube channel shortly thereafter. And I went from 10 leases like February 2017 to 100 leases before 2020 started. Wham, right? Now, this is possible because all you have to do is have enough money for any security deposits, application fees, first month's rent if you have to pay it, and your furniture, right? And there is not a single apartment building that I know of that is going to say, oh, you have too many leases. We don't trust that you can make your payments, so we're not going to give you any more leases. They don't operate like that. Banks will tell you you can't have this many FHA mortgages. You've got a limit because it's too risky to give you all that money on leverage. But with leases, you have leverage because what you're doing is you're renting, like you're getting a year commitment from somebody. Like you get a year of access or 2 years of access to a building for $0 down, or this, like whatever the tenant leverage is. And if you watch Meet Kevin's YouTube channel, he talks about getting tenant leverage, and he's highly adversarial against his tenants in this way. He's like, get 2 months of security deposit and get the first month's rent and the last month's rent paid. Just get all this money from your tenants. So landlords tend to want a bunch of leverage, but when you negotiate bulk deals like I do, I don't end up having to pay all of this leverage. So I have 1 year to 2 year long leases where I put $0 down, first 8 weeks for free, and I get to start building my business. This is the negotiation I make with these landlords in exchange for 10 or 20 doors. So not only am I getting all of these doors that I want to make income over the top on, but I'm getting them for free essentially upfront. Okay, so if you build like this, you take your real estate money and you do something smart with it instead of doing this BS FHA loan build and then watch your housing market crash and then you cry for 3 years, build this way. Build based on cash flow. You're building a high cash flow business. If you ever have to eject, you can break these leases. You're not stuck in mortgages with negative equity in properties. You can just cut and run if you ever wanted to, but you're probably not going to want to. You're going to build up until you have a bunch of cash, and then when the market crashes and housing prices plummet and people are like losing their shirts and they want out of their deals because they're stressed and sweating because they're just hemorrhaging money, that's when you buy property. That's when. And when that time comes, you're going to know it. But it hasn't happened yet. And I know a lot of you out there are waiting for that moment and you're sitting on cash wondering what to do in the meantime. So for those of you thinking about buying a home right now, don't. Sell your homes if you're in major cities, plan for the drop, put your money in rental arbitrage, build up a ton of cash, and then buy when it's low. Do it like that, you make a ton of money. I make over $2 million a year on the Airbnb platform, many videos on this YouTube channel that are precursor to this one, and you can go back and watch them. I actually show you my Airbnb account, I show you my bank statements, I show you my team, I show you everything. It's all here. So welcome, I'm gonna put in the corner a playlist. It's a free course for anybody on YouTube who wants to learn to Airbnb. It's like 150 videos. Click on that. Welcome to the movement, and I'll see you on the other side.